do some of that competitor analysis because you're never operating in a silo. There's always people trying to take the rankings that you have. So if you aren't doing anything to keep them, you got to take a look and see why you're losing them. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Foremost Media Marketing Chat, where we talk about various digital marketing topics. I'm Evan Fasiger, joined with John Ballard from Foremost Media.
Hey, Evan, how are you? It's been a hot minute since we've done this. I'm excited to get back to it.
I am too. I'm hoping that, we can shake off all the rust, if you will, from the lack of recent recording. But I'm excited to talk. And I do like the topic that we have today because it's timely. It's always timely. We wanted to chat about things you can do if you start to notice your rankings dropping in Google, specifically your search engine rankings around keywords.
Yeah, I think it's very timely. We manage a lot of SEO accounts and we've seen some volatility here lately, sometimes up, sometimes down. A lot of people get pretty nervous when their money making keywords, drop off. And so let's talk about what might cause that first, Evan. What's your thoughts? Give us some scenarios on what might cause your rankings to suddenly drop.
Yeah, the first thing I always like to do when you start to notice something like that is to dive in deeper to the data, right? You want to confirm that you are seeing drops. When you rely on tools, sometimes it's good to check the other tools. So if you have, SEMrush, or you're, using Ubersuggest or another tool like that, it's good to compare a little bit with those different tools. Also, I like to check Google Search Console. That's going to give you a wealth of information in there, and the data is going to be able to help you identify what you're looking at. Are you looking at a specific keyword or keywords that are dropping, or is it more of a widespread across the board? Your entire website is dropping in traffic. That information there gives you a good starting point to figure out what you should do next.
Yeah, and Search Console will also tell you if there's like a manual penalty in place or something, which is what everybody kind of immediately goes to. But that's usually not the case. It's really rare to see that unless you've done something really spammy. So I agree, Search Console is a great place to start. Looking at your tools. But let's back up a little bit. What could cause a drop in rankings? What do you see typically? Is it just an algorithm shift, or?
Well, and that depends a little bit on what type of drop you're looking at. Across the board, a lot of times that is going to be more of an algorithm or a manual penalty, like you were saying. Typically, those don't come as surprises anymore. You generally know that you're maybe pushing the envelope a little bit, all right? Or, I guess maybe you got unlucky and got an SEO agency that does a little bit too much of that, get the manual penalty that way. If you start to notice that it's just slowly starting to lose some of your rankings, they're just down month over month and you're not really getting back in place, and there's, hasn't been a recent algorithm update, even though, there usually are algorithm updates pretty recently, that can a lot of times, be attributed to a number of different things to take a look at. If you have that slow decay, sometimes you just, you need to update your content. Yeah, maybe it's not as good as it used to be. Maybe it's getting a little stale. Google likes fresh content. So just even going in there, adding more relevant information, updating it, that can sometimes be, what's necessary at that point.
Yeah, the other thing I've seen a lot, kind of my go-to checklist is, like you said, Search Console. I go check and make sure there's no manual penalties or see what they're reporting, for errors. There's a lot of information on technical SEO in there, slow pages not found. So typically if it's a kind of a drastic drop across the board, a lot of times I'll go look at what's going on with the site technically. I'll run like an SEMrush, site audit, to see if it's slow. Maybe the site was even down, or it's just become overwhelmed. We got more traffic there than the server can handle. So there's a lot of things that can kind of just slow user experience down. And, in turn, Google tends to kind of deflate your rankings a little bit. So, if it's not a technical penalty or like a technical SEO problem, then, or speed problem, or maybe like a mobile responsive problem, then I'll kind of move on to, because those are quick and easy to eliminate. Then I'll move on to more like fresh content and, what can we do content wise.
Yeah, and also just taking a look at what is taking over for the rankings too. So if you've, got past any technical, right? Google's still crawling it, Google's still indexing it. There's no manual actions. Then you can start to take a look at why are you losing rankings? Because is a competitor or competitors, are they doing more SEO work, right? Are they producing better content? Did they update their content, maybe adding, some things that Google likes to see, whether it's videos, more images, better user experience on their sites? Do some of that competitor analysis, because you're never operating in a silo. There's always people trying to take the rankings that you have. So if you aren't doing anything to keep them, you got to take a look and see why you're losing them. It could be as simple as, just evaluating what your internal linking strategy is. Do you have the supporting content around that topic that you're linking to that, sort of that pillar content strategy or the hub and spoke, whichever one you want to really emphasize for it. How do you have all of those connected? That can make a big difference too.
Yeah, and I think, just having a regular content strategy on tap every month, adding new content and, continue to build shows Google you're active as well and can help avoid some of those dips in rankings.
Yeah, the other thing too are backlinks. If you aren't working on building them, trying to get more links to your site, especially more relevant links, then if your competitors are producing content that's more fresh, better, and they're getting more links to their sites, that can be the difference maker too, where why they're starting to favor, or Google's starting to favor your or their article over yours.
Let's talk a little bit about like backlinks in more in depth. I mean, what's a good backlink? And social. Are you encouraging people these days to keep posting on social for backlinking purposes, or where's your mindset on backlinks?
Well, I think it's important to post on social. I think that can generate awareness and article, but I don't really approach it from a backlink perspective as much. And because it's not so much the post on there counting as the backlink to the article. However, if you generate awareness and more people link to it, then you can generate it backlinks that way. There's a few different approaches for the backlinks. And every software has their own classification, whether it's domain authority, which is a pretty popular one, or the DR, right? It depends on which tool you're using, and you have to take that information with a grain of salt though, because it's not like Google is awarding those scores to those sites, but it's good to at least have a benchmark to understand how strong of the domain it is. And that allows you to understand, how valuable is this backlink? And not everybody's backlinks are, as strong as others. If you get one from a high authoritative site, then that's going to count more, to your site versus, just a blog that you spun up to try to link over to your site.
One thing I've seen quite often is like we'll do a lot of new content or make a lot of changes to the site. And, with the anticipation of getting better rankings, and all of a sudden we see drops in rankings. But what we've kind of discovered over the years is that's kind of sometimes typical if you've made a lot of changes to the site. Google doesn't really understand the site anymore and says, well, something's changed here. They may devalue your rankings temporarily while they kind of re-index and deep crawl that site and then come back. And a lot of times we see those rankings come back better if we've done it with the right intentions. Have you experienced that in the past?
Yeah, and I think the key there are is the right intentions. Sometimes you see SEO content, right, and you can tell that it's written just for SEO purposes, and it's not that was ever a good thing to do, but I feel like Google's getting smarter at being able to identify that. And the recent algorithm, update with the helpful content update, that was a big push, trying to find helpful, useful content versus just content written for SEO purposes. I think you're always trying to walk that line of making sure it's easy to identify with Google, that you are still clearly using the keywords, right? You still have an SEO focus on there, but you're thinking about the user too. And how can you, make sure that you're giving the good information for them and it's useful information for them so that it's going to rank. And, if you do a lot at once, then you just have to make sure that you're doing it strategically and adding it, and then take some time. You can't expect it just to be flip the switch just because you added it, or posted it, that it's going to be ranking instantly for it. It takes time to build up, to gain that authority, to have it be recognized.
Yeah, it's a good point. Patience is a key in SEO or organic SEO long term. And, one of the things I think, that people should be doing in addition to organic SEO is pay per click, with Google's new, infinite scroll and some of that, you're seeing sponsored ads throughout the search results now. And, it's clear that they're trying to drive traffic and revenue to that, but it is an opportunity. I mean, I think, people that are just not doing pay per click should maybe relook at it, especially that since some of the changes have come out with how the search results are displayed and returned. So
Yeah, and that's not going to change. I mean, you think about how large of a company Google is, right? How much revenue it produces. Google Ads is still the cash cow. That's where, they're making their money for it. And they need advertisers, and they need advertisers to want to spend money with them. And they need people to click on those ads for all of that to continue. So it's going to, increase, if anything, the importance of paid advertising and how they're intermixing them within those search results to try to drive clicks to the ads. And there are a lot of studies that show, having, even if you're ranking for that term highly, and also, you're paying for an ad, you generally have a much higher click-through rate on both, right? So it's not really necessarily that you're cannibalizing or paying for something that you could have gotten for free in terms of the click. Having multiple taking up more space on the search engine result page basically has always shown that it's going to increase the amount of clicks that you get.
yeah, especially if really seeing like the search results changing when it's related to like shopping, like a product that can show up in shopping feeds. Google really has dominated the top of the search results with snippets from Google Shopping or Google Merchant now. I think a lot of the best ways to get there is just pay the fee. So
yeah, that's a good point.
And I guess the nice thing about pay per click as well is it's not as vulnerable to these ups and downs and the whims of Google. As long as they pay them, they'll keep you up on top. So it's a little bit more straightforward, but. I think a good strategy is, long term, still the best bang for your buck is organic SEO, right? People test that, it converts better, you're not paying for it long term, but, supplement that with pay per click, in my opinion.
For sure. It's not an either or, it should be both. And that's true with a lot of marketing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, nice and short and to the point today. You want anything else you want to get into, or should we call it a day?
I'd say we call it a day. There's going to be more topics coming, so make sure that everybody likes and subscribes, and we'll keep producing them.
Sounds good. Thanks, Evan.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for listening to the Foremost Media Marketing Chat podcast. If you want to stay on top of your marketing game, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. For more episodes, show transcripts, and marketing insights, go to foremostmedia.com.